Welcome to Navigating Advocacy, the true crime podcast that goes beyond storytelling to ignite change and seek justice. I'm Melissa.
And I'm Whitney. As true crime enthusiasts turned passionate advocates, we've seen the power of storytelling raise awareness about unsolved crimes and bring hope to victims and their families. We hope to inspire action and promote positive change within the true crime community.
Our mission is simple. We provide a platform for victims and their families to share their stories, to be heard, and find solidarity. But we don't stop there. We offer practical guidance to our listeners on how they can actively make a difference in their own communities.
Together, we can create a wave of change. We're here to empower you to also become advocates for change, no matter where or who you are. We are Navigating Advocacy.
Happy Monday.
Happy Monday. And we had an exciting weekend last weekend.
We did. Something we haven't done in a couple of months. We went on another foot search.
We did. We finally were able to go back out to where we found evidence connected to the Brandon Lawson disappearance. We finally were able to get the blessing from investigators and the Texas Rangers involved to go out and see if we could find more evidence. And we got to be joined by so many wonderful people and experts and teams. We had a forensic anthropologist out there this time. We had human remain dog teams out there. And it was so interesting to see them work.
Oh, I agree. I learned so much over that weekend, just various looking at bones, if it's human, if it's animal, how the dogs work, what you're allowed to do next to the dog, what you're not allowed to do. It was very interesting weekend. We had about double the people we had last time we searched for Brandon. So that was amazing. So many people just volunteered their time, their resources to come out and support uh, Brandon's family.
I was just so excited that the original search team got to come together again. And then, we've all grown and having those experts there and just getting back out there. It was emotional. It was exciting. It was unfortunately unsuccessful. We weren't able to find anything additional this time, but we had so many rains this year early on over the season since we've been back out there that things have grown very quickly this year, as opposed to when we were out there the first time, that the foliage and the cacti and the mesquite trees, it's just very, very thick already this year. So we struggled a little bit with that, but we're not giving up.
No, definitely not. And if you follow the Help Find Brandon Lawson Facebook page, you will see they did give an update. They're waiting for one more DNA test to come back, and they're hoping that will be back in the next couple of months. So we will definitely have more information for you then.
Mhm. We will share that as soon as we know.
Yep.
All right.
All right.
Other than that, that's been our exciting weekend.
We're just doing anything we can to help support, volunteer our time for these families that are going through something horrific. So,
Yep.
any little thing we can do, we try to.
Absolutely. So let's just get into Massachusetts.
All right.
All right. Boston, Massachusetts is one of my favorite places that I've ever visited. It's known as Beantown and is one of the United States' oldest cities. Although it's packed full of historic charm, brick lined streets, and delicious food, it does have its fair share of crime. It sits at a crime index of 14 on neighborhoodscout.com, meaning your chance of becoming a victim of a violent crime is 1 in 152. This is one reason we're navigating advocacy here in Boston. More specifically, we're discussing a crime in the neighborhood of Allston. It's located on the western side of Boston, and Allston is a vibrant and diverse neighborhood known for its youthful energy and cultural scene. It originally was a part of the town of Brighton and was annexed by Boston in the late 19th century. Allston is home to a large student population due to its proximity to Boston University and Harvard. The streets are lined with a mix of historic brownstones, now modern apartments, and quirky shops and eateries. It also has a strong connection to the music scene, with numerous venues hosting live performances ranging from indie rock to jazz. One of those venues is the Silhouette Cocktail Lounge that opened back in 1965 and has been a staple in the Allston community since. It's one of the few dive bars that reopened after the COVID pandemic.
Oh, wow. That's a really long time, and when I'm thinking about Boston, I don't think music. I guess maybe the jazz portion alone, but other than that, I don't know, it just doesn't bring music to my mind like other places do.
Yeah, like Nashville, Austin,
Yeah.
even LA. You think of music and,
Mhm.
entertainment styles, those places. I definitely don't think of Boston either. All I can think of is Cheers and, like the harbor and history, museums and the old buildings, the state house with the unicorn on the top. And then there's that one building with the gold tea kettle that constantly puts out steam or 24 hours a day. Those are the things that I think about when I think of Boston.
Agreed, agreed.
Crime statistics in Alston specifically weren't the easiest to find in 1998 when this story took place, but there was a moderate level of crime reported, mainly theft and vandalism. This area was home to Rita Hester. Rita was born in Hartford, Connecticut on November 30th, 1963. She was a beautiful, Black, transgender woman and was one of 5 kids in the household. She was well loved and had a bright personality. In one article, Rita's friends said she, quote, lived large and loved big. In the photos I've seen of her, I feel that it really showed through. Her younger sister said that Rita was born to be a star. She could sing, dance, and loved to write poetry. She was truly an artist. I know it's cliche to say that she lit up a room when she entered it, but Rita's nephew described his aunt's vibrant personality as palpable. He said you could feel when she walked in. There was never a time in Rita's life when she wasn't Rita. Even if that wasn't her birth name, she was always Rita to her family and anyone who loved her. While Rita was in Hartford, her identity wasn't as widely accepted. People were being assaulted and severely injured, leading Rita to move in her 20s to the Boston area where she had some friends. Here she made her transition permanent and loved to entertain. One of Rita's favorite places in Boston to visit was a gay bar called Jacques. Bartenders knew Rita well, and said she was always a happy patron and would sing and dance and just be there for a good time. Her outgoing personality and fearless attitude made her friends a bit nervous as Rita regularly went into straight bars to pick up dates. Not all was scary when Rita went into these clubs, though. She was able to meet one of her closest friends at one of the bars that was within walking distance of her home. This friend, I'll call her Wendy, and Rita were always spending time together. Whether it was just hanging out in Rita's first floor apartment on Parkville Avenue, eating pizza, laughing, gossiping, or if they were going out. Rita's neighbors in her apartment recalled fondly of those nights where Rita and Wendy would spend times giggling, laughing. They could hear it through the walls. We've talked hundreds of times of how apartment walls are so thin. You hear everything. So her neighbors heard Rita's joyous laughter and all of those fun nights.
I can only imagine on days or nights that they're getting ready to go out. It's always pre-gaming and getting ready, and it's the most amount of laughter. I literally can just picture that in my head. Even though I have no idea what Rita looks like, I have an image.
I always feel that the pre-gaming, that section was always way more fun than you were gonna have when you went out anyway. It was all about
Oh,
that girl time.
agreed 100%.
On November 26, 1998, Rita spent Thanksgiving with Wendy instead of returning home to Hartford to spend it with her family. This was the first Thanksgiving Rita had missed. 2 days later, on November 28th, Rita and Wendy spent the morning playing racquetball. Around noon, Rita returned to her own apartment, but had intended to return to Wendy's later that evening. Around 4 p.m., Rita called another friend and let them know that she was heading to the Silhouette Lounge and asked that friend to join. That friend wouldn't head out until around 7 p.m. As they were walking towards the lounge, they noticed a heavy police presence in the direction of Rita's apartment, but didn't think too much of it. Rita had been seen at Silhouette's around 5 p.m. by other patrons. Around 6 p.m., Rita's neighbor heard an altercation happening inside of Rita's apartment. She called the police and asked someone to come check out what could have possibly been happening next door. Officers were dispatched at 6:12 p.m. It would take more than an hour for law enforcement to arrive at Rita's apartment, where they would find her barely alive.
What the crap? Do they say what took so long?
They do not.
Wow.
She had been stabbed over 20 times. Paramedics rushed her to the Beth Israel Deaconess Hospital, but Rita's injuries were too severe and she died from cardiac arrest just 2 days before her 35th birthday.
Oh.
There were no signs of forced entry into Rita's apartment, leading investigators to believe that she invited her attacker into her home. Once inside, there were signs of a struggle. The phone had been ripped from the wall, and there was half of a shoe print left behind that did not belong to Rita.
And this, I'm assuming, is in, like, the blood?
hmm
Okay.
After Rita's murder, the media had little coverage of the case, and the coverage that was shared was incorrect. Many outlets not only misgendered and misnamed Rita, they also regularly called her a transvestite or described her solely as a man who wore long braids and preferred women's clothes. They even led some readers to believe that Rita led a double life. Many letters to the editor were written due to the insensitivity of this reporting. Now, this may not come as a shock to many, but law enforcement also did not help with the investigation.
Shocker.
When they notified Rita's mother of her death, it was via a phone call. They did not notify her in person or ask if she was alone. She was delivered this horrific news with no empathy. A few days after the murder, police released the apartment to Rita's family. What many don't know is that when there's a crime scene, after police release it, they are not responsible for cleaning the scene. There are businesses that you can hire to come in and clear the scene for you, but it's costly. I did a quick search for an estimate on what these services can run, and it's between $400 to $600 an hour. And
Wow.
that's just cleanup. That has nothing to do if you need sheetrock removed, carpet removed. That is strictly for cleaning. Rita's family could not afford to hire the service out, and they were left with a gruesome, bloody scene to process. When they entered Rita's apartment, someone had flipped over a mattress in maybe an attempt to hide some of the blood, but it was not fully concealed. And her mom had a breakdown. While packing up Rita's items, her family members found what they believed to be an integral piece of evidence. When later interviewed about this piece, Rita's sister couldn't remember the specifics about what was left behind, but they felt it should not have been left there. This led family to not have confidence in the investigation from the beginning. As time passed, Rita's family received less and less information from detectives in regards to this investigation. Rita's murder is still unsolved to this day. According to the National Coalition of Anti-Violence Programs, in 1998, the number of actual or suspected anti-gay murders in reporting cities increased by 136%, from 14 homicides in 1997 to 33 in 1998. And according to researcher Brendan Lance, the clearance rates for trans homicide victims is less than 50%. Lance is a assistant professor at the College of Criminology and Criminal Justice at Florida State University. Just weeks before Rita's murder, the world learned of the torture, beating, and murder of Matthew Shepard in Laramie, Wyoming. He is a white male who we all have heard his story. Matthew's story was international. Rita's was barely given an article. Three and just 3 years prior, almost to the day, on November 20th, 1995, 23-year-old transgender woman Chanel Pickett was murdered in nearby Watertown, Massachusetts. In 1999, the Transgender Day of Remembrance was created by founders Gwendolyn Ann Smith, Nancy Nangaroni, and Yahaira De Alto to honor Rita, Chanel, and the countless others who have lost their lives due to transphobia. It is held every November 20th to coincide with Chanel's birthday and the anniversary of Rita's death. It wasn't until 2022 when Rita's name would enter the media again, when Boston Mayor Michelle Wu commissioned a mural of Rita, along with a line from one of the poems Rita had written. It's titled Rita's Spotlight, and the mural was crafted to acknowledge the contributions Rita made to the LGBTQIA community. This past December, police put out a public plea requesting any information in relation to Rita's murder. Rita's family believes it was only put out due to the anniversary of Rita's death and the success of the Transgender Day of Remembrance. Now, more than 100 cities take place in some sort of vigil or celebration for Transgender Day of Remembrance.
That's amazing. That's amazing that they do that. It's sad that they have to do that because of all of the transgenders that are not getting the same treatment of any other case. I as soon as you started this, I'm like, "This is I gonna be horrible, like, in a horrible investigation." I could tell you right from the beginning, and it just sucks so much that this is the way that it is.
Rita's mother passed away in 2020, still seeking answers. Her sister has since taken over the pursuit of justice and asks if anyone has any information or were in the Allston area in November of 1998 to please contact the Boston Police Department at 617-343-4470. There was a $1,000 reward early on in the investigation. I couldn't find if it was still active. And honestly, as I was researching this, it's as if the same article has been regurgitated multiple times, which we see a lot,
Yes.
but you and I both know our research process. When we go to newspapers.com and go back to the original date of the crime and then proceed forward year by year trying to find any new additional information. I put in 1998, put in 1999. That's when that Transgender Day of Remembrance began. From there, I couldn't find anything with Rita's name in it. Not a single solitary article. And it just breaks my heart.
Yes. Did you have to try her birth name? Did that
I did. I
Okay.
did use her birth name, and I found a few more, but it was still the same information from originally,
Mhm.
when they originally misgendered her, the original articles. Other than that, this
Mm.
is it. This is all that has been reported on Rita.
That's just horrific.
Yeah.
And they have to know something. Yes, it was, in the 90s, late 90s, but someone had to have seen her. If she was seen at the bar, then like, someone had to see her leave. I feel like people in this area, in this community, had to have known something. If there wasn't surveillance or anything like that, there is other evidence, especially with a stabbing murder. That's the type that leaves DNA, that leaves most likely the perpetrator cut them their own selves. So
Mhm.
there's information out there. We just need people to come forward.
And with her being seen at that establishment at 5 p.m., did she get a date? And did she invite someone back to her apartment? There was no signs of forced entry, but maybe she hit it off with someone, invited them back for a more
Exactly.
private setting, and there we are. She had made plans with her friend Wendy to return back to her home that evening, and when she didn't show up that evening, Wendy just assumed she successfully got a date that night and was
Mhm.
having the time of her life. She didn't think anything of it until she learned
Mm.
the next day and days later that Rita had been murdered.
Wow. We want to share a few ways you can support us to continue our mission. You can become a Patreon subscriber, or a simple rate and review on your favorite podcast platform helps us get in front of someone who may know something.
We will continue traveling state by state seeking justice because we will be there no matter where.
No matter who.